state of high performance.
You're going to love today's episode, and it's worth listening through all the way to the end because you'll hear about all sorts of things, signals coming from your body that you can use to know what's going on. It's actually a way to use your biology to drive self-awareness. So throughout the whole interview, there's just tidbits sprinkled in about what can happen. And we talk about some new tech, but behind that, there's just a wealth of knowledge here. And I had a great time in this interview with one of the companies I respect most in the field of monitoring the human body. So enjoy the show.
If you don't have time to stick around for the entire episode today, that's okay. I'd love to send you a transcript so you don't miss out. Just text the word transcript to 38470 and I'll send you a link. All you've got to do is text the word transcript to 38470 to get the PDF sent right away of the latest episode of Bulletproof Radio. And if you're listening to this later on, don't worry. You can get full links to all transcripts of any previous show once you sign up by texting transcript to 38470.
You're listening to Bulletproof Radio with Dave Asprey. Today's cool fact of the day has to do with timing. There's a recent study where scientists found out that, especially for women, timing is everything for intense workouts. Women, not men, who performed high-frequency leg resistance training 5 times a week during the first 2 weeks of their cycle showed significant results. They had increased jump height, higher peak torque values in their hamstrings, increased lean body mass of the legs, and who doesn't want good legs, and overall positive experiences post-training. In other words, they didn't hate their life after they trained. But when they did the training during the last 2 weeks of their cycle, none of those results happened. So one thing you could say is, well, hey, maybe you should just work out half as much during the right time and get the same results. I'm just saying. So as a strategically lazy person who wants to get the most return on the investment of time and energy in everything I do, in that if I can do it less, and get more return as measured in physical results or just in terms of joy. I don't actually get joy from heavy leg lifts, and you probably don't either. So think about that. Maybe when you're doing the training really matters, you might even run your own little personal experiment there and realize you might want to take it easy or do a different kind of training, a more detox, more stretching and things like that during different times of the month. I have not seen any formal recommendations from any exercise people out there about this, but I bet there's really, really interesting experiments to be done. So if you do this and you notice a difference, I would love it if you just shared with me on Facebook because this is sort of an idea that's come to mind that's, hey, maybe we should talk about this.
I don't do this on Bulletproof Radio very often, but every now and then I talk about what makes me tick as an entrepreneur. And I wanted to share something with you. One of the things that's completely changed how I see the world over the past few years is work from a guy named Peter Diamandis, who's been a guest on Bulletproof Radio. He's a founder of Singularity University. He's a co-founder of Planetary Resources, which is a company that's mining asteroids for precious metals. Every year, I meet with Peter and a bunch of other entrepreneurs at a very exclusive event where I learn from him and some of the world's top experts about what's coming. And it shapes the scale, the scope, the way I think about the world and about what I can do in it. If this is the kind of thing that you care about, just understanding how to have bigger goals, bigger vision, just to see the world very positively and just in a different way, you might want to check out Peter's new online program, which takes all the stuff that I've been benefiting from and makes it way more accessible. So check out bulletproofabundance.com if you're an entrepreneur or you just want to think really big and see if it might be a good fit for you. Peter's a dear personal friend and a man who's really changed my life, and I'm putting this out there to help him and to help you. It's at bulletproofabundance.com.
Before we get into the show today, you probably don't know about Bulletproof cacao butter. And yes, if you're watching on YouTube, I'm holding up a bag of this in a shameless way of promotion here. And the Bulletproof cacao butter comes from chocolate, but it doesn't have the dark stuff in chocolate. It's just pure chocolate fat, which melts almost at exactly your body temperature. And what I do with the cacao butter is I put just a teaspoon or two in my Bulletproof coffee along with the normal grass-fed butter and the brain octane oil and the special beans. And what happens is instead of a strong coffee finish, you taste the coffee and then at the very end, you get this amazing chocolate flavor that's very different than you would have if you were drinking a mocha, which is kind of an overpowering chocolate flavor, even though I like a mocha as well. It turns out all chocolate is produced by fermentation, and about 80% of South American chocolate sampled recently had mold contamination. It's a jungle product that's dried in a moist environment. And these are not studies that I funded or made up. This is a known problem in agriculture, which is why they have different standards in different countries. And 64% of the microbes that create chocolate create toxins that are called mycotoxins or mold toxins. And even at levels that are approved safe, they can make you tired, they can make you jittery, they can give you headaches. And what's going on here is they're saying, well, we're going to assume you're having X amount of toxins per day, so this is safe because you won't eat very much chocolate. But bottom line is we're lab testing our chocolate to make sure that you're getting some clean chocolate, and there's a difference in the cacao butter. So you'll like how you feel after you use this. You can also make truffles and other dessert-like things with it. So it's one of those things I don't talk about it very much, but I absolutely adore it as a chef. And as a culinary guy, you can do just cool stuff with it. So that's called upgraded cacao butter at bulletproof.com. And it's a fun hack for desserts and your bulletproof coffee. All right, let's get going. Today's guest is a huge challenge for me because I am going to attempt to say a name in Finnish. Are you guys ready? His name is, here we go. I'm going to say this right. Petri Latela. Petri, how'd I do?
Yes, very well.
Awesome. All right, there. Now I can claim that I speak Finnish, right? Okay, maybe.
Finnish names are hard.
Petri is the CEO and co-founder of Aura Health. And he's a serial entrepreneur with 25 years of experience. And if you don't know about Aura, you might have seen me in a few different venues wearing a kind of cool looking ring. If you are watching on YouTube, you can go to bulletproof.com/YouTube and just get a link to the channel if you want to see this. But most people are driving. I'm wearing this kind of cool, I don't even know what kind of metal it looks like a shiny black metal ring thing. My first episode on the Dr. Oz show, I was wearing this and 24-hour blood glucose sensor. So it was kind of my bionic arm, because embedded in this ring is a bunch of trackers, like the track movement and respiration and temperature and things like that. I'm really interested in having Petri on to talk about monitoring yourself. And the reason I think that you'll care about this is that when you can get a little bit more data, particularly around sleep quality, it totally tells you whether what you're doing works. I've tracked my sleep for almost 10 years now on a nightly basis. I can tell you for the past 5 years now, I've had 6 hours and 5 minutes of sleep per night on average. How do I know that? Because I do it. I can tell you when I put on my True Dark glasses and wear them for a while before bed, I double my deep sleep on not every night, but on many nights if I do the other stuff right. When I stack it with sleep mode, it works even better. Sleep mode's the bulletproof supplement. I can also tell you, like, if I have caffeine later in the day, I can see it. I still sleep, but my sleep quality changes. So I want you guys to understand that. And a lot of people also don't know this. I was CTO of Basis, the wristband company that Intel bought for $100 million, which was the first company to get heart rate off the wrist, even before the Apple Watch did that. So I have a deep knowledge here, and I wanted to share with you an interview with Petri, who really knows a lot about what's going on here, and to suggest that if you're going to do monitoring and tracking, we're going to talk about what's useful, what's not useful that is tracked commonly in the industry, and how you could potentially incorporate either this kind of technology or something similar into your lifestyle, and how it can, with very little work on your part, give you something meaningful. So welcome to the show, Petri.
Thank you very much. Very nice introduction. It's honor to be here with you today.
Oh, thank you. And I appreciate that you're dialing in on this call from Finland. And so for me, it's morning, but for you, it's evening.
Yeah, that's right. If we would follow our chronotypes, I think it should be opposite. So you have it in the evening and I in the morning. So
are you one of those disgusting morning people?
I'm a lion. Yes, I'm a lion. Yes.
I'm just kidding. So what we're talking about, if you heard the interview with Dr. Michael Bruce, who wrote The Power of When, there's four chronotypes, and 15% of us are morning people, like Petri, and 15%, and those are called lions. 15% of people like me are night people, called wolves, and about roughly half of people are bears during the normal time, and 15% of people never sleep very well. And those are the people, by the way, if you're one of those where you always wake up every night, there's hacks for that. And I've written a lot of them. In fact, a lot of the bulletproof hacks have been replicated on hundreds of health sites now. But if you want to know what's going on, having a tracker is the number one way to know what's going on, which is why it's cool that you mentioned that. And I just have to say, we've all heard that the early bird catches the worm, that common aphorism, but the second part of that never gets repeated. And it's that the early bird works for the late bird. I'm just saying. No, I'm just kidding. So there is no moral superiority from waking up early or waking up late. It's just about your chronotype. Exactly. Right. And that's a cool thing. Yeah. All right. So let's get back to this cool tracking stuff. You're 25-year experienced health entrepreneur. You've done tracking stuff before. Now, one of the reasons I joined Basis is that it was the first technology. This was, back at the time when Fitbit was a tiny company, we were competing with them. I joined them because it was the first and only tech. This is going back, almost 10 years, that could get heart rate variability from the wrist, while you were moving around. It was really cool stuff. And now, the world has changed, sensors are better, and I don't like bracelets that much, although actually I'm wearing a bracelet today, but it's not heavy and doesn't require charging. So the thing I've got on my hand right now, the Oura Ring, can track a bunch of stuff. What are all the things that you can track from one finger now?
Yeah, so first of all, we access the arteries. On every finger, we have 2 arteries on the palm side of the finger. And with the ring, we access directly the arteries. So we get really accurate reading, not only of your heart rate, but the pulse waveform and the interbeat interval, time between the heartbeats, as well as the pulse amplitude variation. So all the characteristics of the pulse waveform. And there's lots of information about your physiology, even about your biology inside there. And it tells about your autonomic nervous system balance and also how it's working together with your central nervous system. So how your brain and heart are talking to each other. So there are plenty of very interesting information in different timelines of collecting the data.
It's interesting that you can tell how someone's breathing, how often they're breathing, just from looking at their heartbeat. And a lot of people just don't know that. So there's this wealth of knowledge that comes from just what's going on here. And you might know this. Who or what's the first tradition that noticed this?
It has been known for quite some time that, of course, from the time between the heartbeats, you can calculate your respiration rate, but also from the variation of the pulse wave itself, you can actually see the breathing frequency as well, and the variation of the frequency. So especially when you have the visualization of the pulse waveform, and you do, for example, deep breathing exercise, you can see very well that how the pulse amplitude is varying along with your breathing rate. So there are 2 different ways to derive the breathing and breathing frequency and the respiration rate.
It's kind of funny. Cardiologists figured this out, probably going back over the last 60, 70 years, and they started looking at this stuff when we could first get reliable pulse stuff, and they started looking at correlative analysis. But if you go back thousands of years, traditional Chinese medicine, traditional Tibetan medicine, which is a different form of medicine that's a little bit more linked to Ayurveda, and Ayurvedic physicians, they would all touch your wrist in different places, and an experienced practitioner would have all these algorithms in their nervous system. So they could touch your wrist for about 8 seconds and not just get beats per minute. Any doctor who regularly takes a pulse can do that. They just know, like an ER doctor can, it's like the magic power. But these guys, and I did this in Tibet, it touches 4 points on the wrist, and it's okay, and it tells you all sorts of stuff. And what's going on here with the Oura Ring is something roughly similar to that, probably not as nuanced as 2 nervous systems interacting, but you're getting this wealth of data that is not intuitively obvious to almost anyone. Even if you're a medical professional, you wouldn't think it's there, but when you do the crunching, how did you fit all this stuff